Once you've drafted your basic block, the next step is converting that block into the pattern for your actual cosplay, because most cosplays are not like super simple shift style dresses, but some probably are. In this video, I'm going to go over a technique that I particularly like to use when taking my basic block and turning it into a cosplay pattern. You might find this is really similar to the cling film tape method that a lot of people use, particularly for armor-based cosplays. I like using this version of it, which involves your fabric block, because then I'm working directly with fabric, which is going to have more similarities to the final materials that I'm working with. And I also am more easily able to recycle fabric where I live, and so therefore I generate a little bit less waste using this method as well. Once you have the parts of your block assembled that you need and it's fitted, go ahead and pop it on your dress form or on yourself, although if you do it on yourself, I recommend having a buddy. And to make sure your reference images are handy. You're gonna need at least one Sharpie, although I do recommend if you have them, a few different colors. That'll help you with the coding later on. Next, you just start drawing on the lines that you see in your reference image onto your basic block. You'll also want to note any of the original seam lines that you're going to be keeping. You'll notice I'm only doing half of the bodice because the entire design is symmetric. If your design is not symmetric, then you'll want to do a full bodice, but I like doing it this way because I can save on some material, and then I also don't have to worry about making it identical on both sides because I'll just be flipping it, so it will become exactly mirrored. If you find, for example, here, you don't have quite enough material and you want to get a better idea, like the shoulders on this stick out a little bit more, you can just take a piece of extra fabric and then pin it in place where you want to add the material and extend the lines. You can also use this technique in any of your seams. So for example, if I wanted this to flare out more, I could unpick this seam, split it open, and then pin more fabric in the center. So that's also a way you can adjust your block to be bigger in certain areas, as well as to add your additional seam lines for your pattern. Once you're happy with all of the placement of the lines, you've added any bits of material that you need to add, we're going to want to add some guidelines for ourselves. So for example, I know this is being a cutout, so I'm just going to scribble it so I know that it's not part of the pattern. And then I'm going to use some of my other colors to just add some lines to show what I'm connecting to what. You can add whatever lines are most helpful for you, but I like to color code because that's how my brain works. The next step is to take the mock-up off of the dress form and cut it apart. You're going to cut along all of those lines that you just drew, including any of the seam lines that you plan to keep. Don't worry about keeping seam allowances. In fact, I recommend trimming it off here, as you can add that on after you clean up and finish your pattern. Make sure as you're cutting it out, you add any additional notes or information like the name of the piece or where it's located or if it's the front or the back, just to help keep everything straight. After that, we're going to transfer these pattern pieces to tracing paper to clean up any of the edges or the lines. Take your tracing paper and lay it over the top of your pattern piece. Tape it down if you need to. Then, using a ruler for any of the edges that are meant to be straight, trace around the edge of the pattern piece. Make sure you transfer over any of those marks or labels to help you keep your pieces organized. After that, remove the fabric piece of the pattern, add any extra notes or information, and clean up any of the lines that you need to. Then go ahead and repeat that for each of the pieces in your pattern. An important thing to note is before you begin this process, make sure all of your pattern pieces lie flat. If the piece isn't flat, you can't convert it into a two-dimensional pattern. That might mean you need to add a seam or a dart or cut a little notch and alter the pattern slightly. Just make sure this doesn't mess with the fit in a way that it's going to prevent it from fitting anymore. You can see that I had to do that for one of the pieces on the center front. I added a slight dart right by the collar so that it would lie flat. Once you've traced all of your pattern pieces onto paper, added all of your annotations and information, your basic paper pattern is complete. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments below what other video cosplay tutorial information you would like me to make next. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to help out with that algorithm goodness, and you can also check me out live on twitch.tv/randomtuesday, or head over to my website randomtuesday.com, where I have lots of tutorials, information, and other cosplay resources. As always, thank you to each and every one of my patrons over on Patreon who made this video a reality. If you're able to do so, any amount of support is truly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.